And welcome to Catholics Coast to Coast. I'm Ace McKay, where we love to just hang out. Podcast Central, always a great place to find Catholic conversations that can help deepen your walk with God. Always remember, you can find us at ewtn.com/podcast. And then if you find some that you like to subscribe to, easy to find on any platform. That way you don't miss future episodes. As we dive in, hanging out with just a guy in the pew as we begin a new year, it's always easy to fall into traps of resolutions rooted in self-reliance and even shame. John and Victor are going to talk honestly about why those approaches fail and why true renewal does not come from reinventing ourselves by our own effort, but by allowing God to convert and restore us to who we were created to be. So, Just a Guy in the Pew podcast is where we're going to start this week on Catholics Coast to Coast.
Well, welcome back to the Pew, everybody. I'm your host, John Edwards, and man, is it a joyous day because my co-host and compadre, Victor Adams, is back across the table from me.
John, you've been flying solo for a while, and I appreciate the break, but I know also that you've been a lot going on in your life too. So it's good to be back and kind of talk about things that, going into New Year, things we've got to refocus on because, Christmas is great. Kids are home from school, or kids are come home, or away from home, come home and hang out, and you get to meet your family, your parents, all those things. But then, life starts over again, back to school, back to work, back to the grind. So it's kind of one of those things where we're thankful for, celebrating the birth of Christ and his salvific, union coming into this world through the Blessed Mother and giving us that salvation, and I love it. I really do. I love the process of, coming into the season and
Advent,
and then all of a sudden it's like New Year's, and then you gotta go, okay, now what do I do?
Yeah, sure. Well, I'm excited to talk about that today, but my New Year's starting off wonderful because you're back in here, man. I'll tell you, people ask me all the time when I go to the JP2 events or our events or just see them out places like, hey, is something wrong with Victor? I'm like, no. Yeah. My dad's had cancer, and I've been a lot of in and out of town for that, and we'll continue that for the foreseeable future. Mm-hmm. And then you had the new job, and then you throw in the holidays, like you said, in the middle of it, and it's hard to get some things planned. So for those of you out there that were worried that like Victor died, or and I just didn't tell you, or like we had some rift in our relationship or something, somebody asked that. They're like, are y'all not friends anymore? And it's like, no, we're friends. We just, it's just been a busy season for a lot of different reasons. So, but 2026 is off to a good start because you're here.
Yeah.
Last week we kicked off the first episode of the year with Pete Burak. I had interviewed him because he had that new book coming out on fatherhood and came out that first week. Pete's been a friend for a long time. One of the first people I met in ministry, and so wanted to introduce his new work to our audience. But I was super excited to get back in here with you, and we're going to be talking about some of the things that you mentioned, like 2026 and how to move forward. And the last episode of the year, I talked about a weary world rejoices and challenge men to look at one thing to let go of, one thing to build, and one thing to heal. And so hopefully a lot of the guys are working on those things. But just want to talk about 2026, the year as a whole, and we'll get into that in a second. But we talked about last week, or I talked about in the episode at the end of the year before, the one with Pete and his book, about this is really that last week of Christmas to January was a sacred space and a sacred time where the Lord just gives us a beautiful opportunity. A lot of people have that time off to just kind of look back at the year, but also look forward, and how a lot of people wind up with anxiety and worry and stress. I got to push the rock up a hill again. And they also start to look back and say, okay, where did I fail last year? And I think that's what I started to do during that week some, and I think that's what a lot of us can be guilty of, is you start to kind of look back at the previous year, 2025 in this case, and you start focusing on the negative. Well, I failed here. I failed at that. I wasn't good at this. I said I'd be a better father and I wasn't, or I said I'd be a more present husband and I wasn't. Whatever the thing is, we can focus on the negative and really get caught up in all of that. And here's the thing. A little bit of introspection is good. It's not necessarily a bad thing to look inside and to see like where things need to be changed. But if it's taken too far, though, it can lead us to think that we need to create like a whole new us, right? That everything, okay, I failed at these three things, so this entire body and person and spirit and soul needs an entire makeover because I'm nothing but a failure. I'm nothing but a mistake, or whatever shame is coming your way. And so when we start to look at it like that, and we stay inside constantly introspecting instead of coming back out and looking at things from a lens of, okay, let's be objective here. Where were the good things? Where were the bad things? And let's move forward in that. We tend to focus on those negative things, and then, we think that we got to create a whole new self, and then it leads us to what? These worldly resolutions, right? Where we're sitting here going, like, I've got to change this, and I've got to do that, and I got to lose weight, and I've got to change the way I dress, and I got to get a new job, and there's all these things happen, and we start setting up all these resolutions, and oftentimes we try to eat the whole cake instead of taking a slice of it at a time, and those resolutions, a lot of them wind up shallow, and they set us on a path to like white-knuckled self-reliance and self-improvement things, and unholy self-reliance. And the truth is, Victor, these resolutions oftentimes, they graze the surface of issues that are probably things we need to deal with in our life, but they don't really get to our need. And that need is like a real and proper understanding of our worth and our value. Because if you think about that, when we look back at the things we didn't do right, we fail, we struggle with, then we start to devalue ourselves and our worth based on the places that we fail. And we look at it in this whole, it's all up to me mindset, which we've talked about so many times on the show, but it's really important this time of year as we start looking at the things we want to do at 2026. It shouldn't just be about like trying to become a new version of ourselves. It should be about restoration.
Right. And you're right. We're always typically harder on ourselves than anyone else is in our life. I don't know why. I know that I am like when it came to study, when it came to sports, like I was one in my head yelling at myself for making a mistake. And I think a lot of us have that shared experience. And so we're very tough on ourselves and our expectation of who we should be or who we need to be. As we do, we strive for perfection in like setting up the house for Christmas, or, making sure everyone's comfortable when they come over, for family, whatever, visiting. And then stuff that go like, the Griswold Christmas, we all know that, right? I mean, he had this grand idea of like, must be great. My parents come over, your parents come over, the kids are going to be here. Like, we're just going to enjoy this time, and it just kind of like snowballed out of control. And to the point where he, his cousin Eddie, was kidnapped his boss and about to get arrested,
Yeah, sure.
But everyone knows that story. But that's what I'm saying is that if we're not careful, we can be the toughest critic on our own selves to where we have no mercy for ourselves. And therefore we have no mercy to give to our own self. Then we're unable to kind of like be at peace in everything we do because we set this high agenda of our need. And you were saying like, we as we go back, we look over the year, it's also important to kind of look at to when God intervened for us, and we can see that. And hindsight is always where, for me, that I can see, well, God stepped in.
Yeah.
And I thought that I was, this story, 6 weeks without a job, job searching. I mean, that's panic button time.
Yeah, sure.
But as God says in His scriptures, like, do not worry, do not fear. Even look at the lilies of the field. They're the splendor they have. Not even Solomon had that, wardrobe, I mean, God, if God does this for the flowers and the birds, I mean, He loves you even more,
More does He love you.
Right.
Yeah.
And so it's kind of the things we have to remind ourselves that we're not just cast off from God whenever we're not our perfect selves. He's still present. He still loves us. And the Holy Spirit is there to give us that encouragement to keep going.
Yeah. And that's what I was saying. Like when you look back at some of these things, and you concentrate more on the failures and stuff, then you start to look, like I said, it becomes these worldly resolutions that are shallow, and they're all about self-improvement and what can I do to make myself better, and we become performance-based instead of focusing on transformation. We wind up chasing performance, I should say, instead of transformation.
Right.
And the truth is, Victor, we don't need new versions of ourselves. We just need to remember who we are. And this is something that maybe people get tired of us talking about, but we are beloved sons. And if they get tired of us talking about it, we're never going to stop talking about it, because this is the base of everything. If you don't have this base and you don't return to it to make sure that this foundation is constantly strong and where it should be, and there aren't cracks in it, then you're always going to fail to build the house that you want or the structure that you want, because a foundation is pivotal in having something that's going to be built to last, right? And that foundation has to begin. I have to continue to make steps in my faith based on I'm always going back to who I am, because when I remember who I am, I remember who God is. I can't remember who I am properly without remembering who He is. I'm not beloved son if there isn't a loving Father. And so when we live in that and we can go back to that, it reminds us like, okay, again, my life isn't about performance. It's about surrender. It's about transformation. It's about just understanding my worth and my value comes from whose I am and who I am, not from what I can do or what I need to change or where I failed, where I wasn't perfect. And this is where a lot of us enter into the year is like, no, we've got to change all these things. And then what do? We fail because we're like, I'm going to go to the gym and I'm going to lose 30 pounds. And you lose 5 and you go, well, what was that? What's even good? I'm giving up that. And now I got to change my clothes because someone made a comment at Christmas that, what do you dress like? So now I got to dress like more people, or somebody has a better job than I do. So now I have to work harder so I can feel as good as them, right? All these things run up against our wounds, our inadequacies, our shame about a lot of different things. And so, there's a verse here that I'm reminded of in all of this, and it's 2 Corinthians 5:17. And it's Paul that says, therefore, if any one of us is in Christ, he is a new creation. The old one has passed away. Behold, the new one has come. And this is what we have to remember, is that we are a new creation in Christ. And because of that, we depend on Him and that relationship that we have with Him and the Father, not on our own selves. We depend on ourselves is when we start to struggle, right? And when we start to fail and we start to get down and we start to have that shame and that guilt and we start to move towards isolation instead of that relationship that the Lord calls us to. So, 2026 doesn't need to be about our performance and perfection. It needs to be about moving like towards God and who He created us to be. Right. Like that's really where we need to go. And our goals for 2026 should be about things that are really going to move the needle in our life, like deeper conversion, healing, restoration, intentional brotherhood. Like that's stuff that is going to move the needle. Because here's the thing, Victor, we think if we change all these small things and these sort of external things, then everything's gonna be all right. But if the internal isn't seen to, it doesn't matter what you put on the outside. It's putting lipstick on a pig. And I'm not trying to say like call everybody a pig or say people are ugly or anything like that. But I'm just saying it's window dressing. Right. Jesus tells us, like He tells the Pharisees, like you shine the outside of the cup, but you don't do anything to the inside of it. And this is where transformation and real change in our life begins. Because guess what? If you live out of your identity and you really understand that that's where your worth comes from, then it doesn't matter what anybody else thinks, the failures you've had in your life, you move on and you continue to move forward because you're building your life on Christ, not on yourself, not on what anybody else thinks. And man, the world could use a lot of that in 2026.
Right. Well, talking about going back and reviewing your life, and seeing where, for instance, things didn't go the way you wanted to go. I've been reading the book of Ezekiel, and if you ever read Ezekiel, I'm about chapter 8. It is an intense book. Yeah. He is a prophet that the scheme of what's going on is that this is after the Babylonian king Nebuchadnezzar came and conquered, and took all of them captive to Babylon. So they're like totally removed from like their culture, their way of life and all that stuff. And then Ezekiel, Jeremiah dies and Ezekiel becomes the next prophet. And so God becomes like upset in the sense of like saying, this is why this happened, because your hearts weren't turned towards me. You're turned to your own selfish devices and stuff. And so, not to get a deep dive in Ezekiel because it's intense, but what I'm trying to get to is that they were mourning. A lot had happened. When your life is changed or the things don't go your way, like say for instance, Christmas is tough for a lot of people because that's when someone that they love isn't there anymore. Yeah. Due to sickness, death, or a tragic accident. It's intense, especially for families who have young children that are not there anymore. So for Christmas, there is also moments of people, of injury, and healing still needs to be there. And so moving past that, they want to not make distance of it, but to understand what's God's will in my life going forward. Like in the book of Ezekiel, they realize what they've done. Like if we take a deep dive into what our year was like last year in 2025 with all the political divisiveness, people calling each other's names, maybe people on Facebook or whatever didn't like defriend you, whatever, because we got so angry, so obsessive about some things, and a lot of our relationships have been probably hurt from that. And I think for moving towards God is one of those things like this, the title is that we have to realize that we can't put faith in people around us. Like we're friends, we help each other out, and we give mercy, and we're charitable to them. But in order for us to be happy in this world, we have to see God's heart. We have to be close to God's Spirit, and we have to realize that we're all in this together. We're all trying to figure out, how to live a life of peace, but also justice, but also trying to understand, things aren't always going to work out the way we want it to work out, but It works in God's will. And for us, that is the most difficult thing for us to kind of put ourselves into and to identify what God's will is.
Yeah, and I think if we're not careful, a lot of guys can enter into the year with that sort of mindset that we've talked about so many times on here. It's like, well, I just need to try harder.
Yeah.
And I need to white knuckle the steering wheel of my life and pull myself up by my bootstraps and be that one-man army, that John Wick or that John Wayne. And it's just that all that does is set us up for more disaster, right? Because you can't do it by yourself. And there's so many of us that keep beating our head against the wall. And then another year goes by and we look back at, well, I didn't get to where I wanted to go here. I'm not further in my relationship with Christ. I'm not a better husband. I'm not a better father. I'm not a better single vocation man, right? Whether it's in the priesthood or in just a single young man. Like, I'm not where I wanted to be. And a lot of times it's because we're trying to toe the rope ourselves. We're trying to toe the lies ourselves. And so what that does is we try to go into another year and go, I just got to be more perfect. I just got to have it more figured out. I just got to be more stringent, more disciplined, more this, more that. And I want to frame the year with this truth for 2026. And the fact is, the truth is that God doesn't ask us to be perfect men. He asks us to be surrendered men.
Right.
And that's, again, a difficult word for a lot of guys who are out there thinking, no, I got to do it by myself. I got to surrender. That means I'm giving up. No, it doesn't. It means that you're finally realizing that you can't do it by yourself.
Yeah.
You're allowing humility to break through the strongholds of your life, right? Because internally we all know, I can't do it by myself. I keep trying and I can't get there, but I can't give up because that means I'm not a man. Right, that's the eternal struggle we have on the battle of our hearts. Right, I'm not a man if I ask for help. If I tell God I can't do it without Him. But that's exactly what we need. God isn't looking for perfect men; He's looking for surrendered men. And here's the thing: when we're not surrendered men, Victor, we become men of self-reliance, unholy self-reliance, and honestly, we start to live like orphans instead of beloved sons. And, what do I mean by that? Obviously, I don't mean orphans that people have lost family members are bad, but just we live as if we're the only one that we can depend on, right? I think of the movie, and, every time at Christmas, it's on a lot because Charles Dickens wrote it too, but Oliver Twist, right? I remember watching that movie when I was a kid, the musical and all that stuff, and there's just these orphans are pickpockets, and it's
a rough life.
Yeah, they're seeing for themselves and stealing, and they eat what they can get and gather, and their worth and their value to someone is based on what they can bring, not who they are. And so when we live outside of our identity as beloved sons, and understanding the identity that we have a loving Father, right? The truth of the loving Father is we become like orphans, and the thing is, orphans hustle for survival.
Yeah.
Right. That's their thing, is they receive their worth from what they can hustle and dependence on themselves, which is never going to be enough.
No. Yeah.
Where beloved sons receive their worth from their identity, right? And live from it in the provision, trusting in it provides. And so that's the way we need to enter into 2026 and saying, you know what? I've been living as an orphan, right? Maybe I have in my life, and I'm trying to do everything myself as if there's not someone standing at the ready to help me, meaning God the Father, God the Son, and God the Holy Spirit, right? And so when we do that, we're setting ourselves up for another year of just, okay, well, what do I need to do better? I need to go to the gym more and get in shape. I need to get a new job. I need a new haircut. I need a better car. I just need a better vacation with my family and they'll love me more. And we start setting up all these resolutions and they don't come true. And it's just like it's almost like getting to the top of a plateau just for the vine we're holding on to break and to fall all the way back down to the bottom because we're trying to climb the wrong vine, right? We're depending on the wrong things. And so as orphans, the world calls us to these worldly resolutions, right? But God calls us to renewal. So that's the focus of 2026 is that truth that God isn't looking for perfect men. He's looking for surrendered men, but he's also not looking for resolutions. He's looking for renewal, right? Renewal in our own hearts that are going to open ourselves up to him so that more of his grace and mercy can be poured into our life. We can heal wounds. We can begin to become restored. We can just naturally let the grace of the Lord allow us with our participation to become the men that we're called to be. And then a lot of these things that are so important to us or seem so life and death and so just, I'm going to die if this doesn't happen for me, we realize become inconsequential because they're just things outlying on the greater truth. That what we need in our life is a understanding of our identity, our worth, a relationship with God through the Son, Jesus Christ, and a relationship with those around us that he's put in our 10-foot radius, right? To be the people that we're called to be, not just for ourselves, so that others can come to know him. And so if you want to live a purpose-filled life in 2026 and you want to get away from the nagging things that have always nagged you, then you have to return to who you are. Right? Not these resolutions and making a new version of ourselves, because there's nothing wrong with who you are at its core. Maybe you've forgotten, maybe you've gotten off the beaten path, but at your core, you are who God created you to be. You just have to find that. And in finding that, you find your purpose and your joy and your happiness. And you can enter into 2026 not worrying about being perfect and not worrying about what the world says you should have or do or be or all these things that you can check and check and check and it'll never fulfill you. But you can come into that identity as a surrendered man and find what you've been looking for all the time.
Right. What you're talking about is like we do this all the time. Like we justify our own existence. We create a bullet point, a resume or CV, if you're listening to the UK, of
that's a new
what
word
we
for
bring.
Resume.
Yeah, what we bring to the table. Like, and this is the best example. Like, so when I was dating Christy, her dad, Bill Wiley, was a union guy. So, okay, Kimberly Clark, he was the head of the union leader. So, and if anyone's ever watched Archie Bunker, that's who he was. He was kind of like no nonsense, like, this is what we're going to do, kind of like take charge guy, So I was like, asking for her hand in marriage, and I'm like, what I can. So here I am. I'm creating a reason why I'm asking, So I asked for Christy's hand in marriage. Guess what I did? I proposed all my reasons for existence. Like this is my name's Victor. This is who I am. This is what I'll bring. This is all the things that I have, that my net worth, my ability to this, my job experience. He looked at me. He goes, "Oh man, it doesn't matter. You love her?" I said, "Yes, sir." He says, "That's all that matters." And we have to understand that God is saying, like, "Do you love me?" Yes, God, I love you. That's all that matters. Then serve me, serve my sheep, feed my sheep. We have to. We think we have to justify who we are in this world, and this world isn't going to be our end result. Our result is how do we love, and do we love well, and do we allow other people to love us too, and do we serve God with a fullness of heart or selfish intentions? Are we doing it to get attention for the wrong reasons, and we have to be very understanding that, yes, a reset is good, to reevaluate what we've done, how can I be better? But the point where if we try to set goals in our life that is not what God wants us to be focused on, then guess what? That becomes our God. That wealth, that new job, that new car, that new home, that becomes an idol to us until we're driven to the point where either we obtain it, okay, congratulations, or does it destroy our soul along the way? Our attainment is to be close to God, to be part of His heart, to just to live with Him, and we have to understand that for you guys who are listening, who are like, dang, that's interesting. that's something I want you guys to focus on. John and I are trying to tell you is that the most important thing in this world is to love God, to love those that you're with, your spouse, and to teach your children about God's love as well, because we won't always be here for our kids, But if we give them a good foundation and we set up the sense of like, hey, life's going to be difficult, things are not going to work out the way you expect it to be. But when you have faith in God, then those things that hit you upside the head hard, it may hurt, but it doesn't kill you.
Yeah. Well, in these difficult places where we fail or we find ourselves, in a place we don't want to be is often because we look up one day and we've just left God behind, intentionally or not. Right. It's like everything else in the world became more important to me. My job, my, moving up the ladder, the things, possessions, comforts, all those things. And then we turn around and we look and we're like, where's God? And where am I? And why am I in this thicket of bushes in the wilderness now by myself? And how did I get here? And the thing is, it's because we've moved further and further. And it's not like you just turn around and go, okay, God, I'll see you later. I'm on my own now. Yeah. And you just take off in a dead sprint and you're miles away from him. You look up one day because we are chasing these worldly things and we are making these worldly resolutions. And so again, like, I just want to say that worldly resolutions are often like self-driven, behavior-centric, and fueled by some sort of shame. Like that's really what they are at their core. But renewal is powered by grace. It's fueled by repentance and focused on the heart and rooted in identity. And there's a great part of the catechism that talks about this. It's paragraph 1431, and it says interior repentance is a radical reorientation of our whole life, a return, a conversion to God with all our heart, an end of sin, a turning away from evil with repugnance towards the evil actions we've committed. At the same time, it entails the desire and resolution to change one's life with hope in God's mercy and trust in the help of his grace. That's the way we should enter into 2026, is not through shame and all those things and not through these surface level kind of resolutions that might make us feel like better for a short amount of times, but returning and saying the only way back to being in the place that I've gotten so far away from is through going back into my identity, understanding who I am and whose I am, and then walking back towards that, growing that relationship, starting anew, starting afresh, beginning again, as we hear so many people like St. Benedict and Pope John Paul II, and we hear in the Bible so often, just begin again, begin again. God offers us that opportunity each and every day.
Finding a healthier way to approach 2026 by grounding life in identity and committing to a daily surrender to God. Great stuff from Just a Guy in the Pew. You want more on that conversation? Easy to find. Go to Podcast Central. That's EWTN.com/podcast, or find Just a Guy in the Pew wherever you like to subscribe so you don't miss what's to come. I am Ace McKay. When Catholics Coast to Coast returns, we're going to hang out with Forte Catholic as the Pope's recent live stream with thousands of American teens at the National Catholic Youth Conference, Seek 26, was pretty much a monumental moment in the life of the American church, and it made a profound effect on Taylor. He's going to share his thoughts and how it brought him closer to his faith in that moment as we come back with Forte Catholic with Catholics Coast to Coast.
If it's central to the faith, you can find it on EWTN Podcast Central, featuring the best of EWTN Radio, as well as faith-filled podcasts from our friends and affiliates across the nation, all in one place, all free. The destination for great Catholic audio programming is EWTN Podcast Central. It's like podcast heaven. Visit EWTN.com/radio/podcasts today.
Hello there, and welcome to Forte Catholic. I'm Taylor Schroll, and that is Chris Bartlett. Hello, buddy. How are you, my friend?
Good. It's been about a month.
About a month? Well, it's usually been about a month for you, but it is weird for me. You're right.
That's new for you and your listeners, so welcome to our monthly installment.
I mean, not really. If you've looked at the last year, this is actually pretty normal.
That's fair. That's fair.
We're back, and I have this weird thing about today's show. A few weeks ago, NCYC happened. I was not there. I was at the parish. I started a new job. I let everybody know. If you're wondering where the show's been for the last month, go listen to that last episode. You'll figure it all out. Got a new job at the parish. And we had this event because the Pope was speaking to NCYC, the National Catholic Youth Conference. You and I have both been before. You weren't there this time. I know you weren't because you didn't experience this event, because I called you and said, "Did you see that?" And you were like, "No." So
yep. I've watched highlights. I was on the planning committee, and I'd love to tell you how that all got orchestrated, but because it's a really cool story. But keep going. So the NCYC, National Catholic Youth Conference.
Yeah. So it happens every year in Indianapolis. It happens in the Indianapolis Colts Stadium. So like 40 to 60,000 kids are in this stadium. And it's a youth conference. There's talks, there's prayer, there's mass, there's adoration, there's music, there's fun and all this kind of stuff, right? Well, I've been there before, and it's a really cool experience. But like, I went when I worked for a Blaze, and I was like running a booth. It's like I wasn't really engaging in the conference, but like I went and like did adoration, like participate in adoration from the rafters essentially, which was that was a cool experience because it was a trippy experience. Like everyone that listens to the show knows that I have a hard time paying attention to anything that's happening, especially something quiet and methodical like a mass or adoration, right? So I kept getting distracted. Where in a church, if you get distracted, there's built-in things for people like me. Like there's banners, and then if you get high enough, there's like stained glass, and it's like that's kind of what it's for. It's for the ADD people like me that are like, oh, even when I'm distracted, I'm thinking about how David was fighting that lion and how Moses was, wrangling that snake onto the boat. I get to see these sorts of things. But when I was at NCYC, it was like I was looking at three things. One, I kept trying to look at Jesus because I know that that's what I'm supposed to be doing.
Sure.
But that's probably 40% of my time during the 30 minutes of adoration was looking at Jesus. The other 40 was looking around at the vastness of these people. Like 40 to 60,000 people from across the country that all care about Catholicism, that are all here for this big moment. The 40 plus 40 is 80, Taylor. Yes, I'm aware. The other 20% was me going from Jesus to Peyton Manning's retired number, to Jesus to Peyton Manning's retired number, to Jesus to Peyton Manning's retired number. And I couldn't, it was this weird moment of like, this is everything I care about. Like if my wife and kids were here, like this is it. This is everything. I've got professional football. I've got the people that care about and love Jesus, and I've got Jesus. Like almost everything I care about is right here, and I don't have to glance that far. Jesus, Peyton Manning, people. Great. Good. So I had that experience. How many times have you been to NCYC?
Probably 5 or 6.
Yeah, great. So I wasn't there, but something very special. People are listening. I'm surprised how many people did not hear that this happened.
Yeah.
The Pope of the Catholic Church live streamed into this conference for 45 minutes. It wasn't a hey, hello. It wasn't a pre-recorded, hey, I'm praying for you and I care about you. It was actually caring for this group of people who you and I have dedicated our lives to serving.
Yeah.
The young people from across America. I've got goosebumps now. We'll see if I can get through this without crying. If you've listened to this show for 10 years or any time in between, you know how much I care about serving the church, serving, using my gifts to do all this sort of thing. And my primary way that I've done that is through youth ministry.
Yep.
If you've listened for more than 5 years, you know some of the struggles that I've had in working in and around the church, especially from leaders within the church. So seeing the leader of our church spend 45 minutes being personable, taking time out of his day to spend 45 minutes speaking to, answering the questions of American young people, an American Pope speaking to American people in Peyton Manning Stadium. I wept for 15 minutes because I've never felt so loved and cared for by the church ever, a single moment in my entire life.
And how did we get here? This is the fascinating thing because I agree. It seems that at best, young people, especially from the hierarchy in the church, sometimes feel like an afterthought. Okay, we've taken care of the other stuff. We have a little bit of bandwidth. Yes, we'll do something for the youth. And so I'm on the planning committee, and they reached out to the Holy See, to the Holy Father, and they said, hey, could you send a pre-recorded message? This is the largest gathering of Catholic youth in the United States. Could you send a pre-recorded message, like just something 3 to 5 minutes? And they reached out to his office and made that request. He came back and he said, hey, instead of something pre-recorded, why don't we just do something live? Like for 30 to 45 minutes. I can make time for these young people. So it wasn't even this, hey, let's hope that he's able to do this live stream. It was, we asked him for what we thought was a generous ask, 3 to 5 minute video from his time. And he came back and said, no. Why don't I spend almost an hour with these young people instead?
Crazy.
Isn't that nuts? Like the Pope Leo loves the young people. He was the one who said 5 minutes is enough to share my heart with these young people. Let's do an engaging event. I think he actually used the word over Zoom. Let's do a Zoom. We call it a digital encounter, but 45 minutes. It was his idea, Taylor. It was his idea. It's crazy.
Just like the amount of care that it showed from a father, like the father in a church, but from a father in the church to his children, and like his children meaning the children in the room, but also like I felt loved from a father in the church from halfway across the country, and he was halfway across the world. So it started like most normal Pope things.
Everyone all button up, very formal.
Like, it's not a nuncio, but one of those words that's made up. The only word that I know is nuncio, but some kind of representative for the Holy See it's all eloquent, and it feels like we're about to introduce the Queen of England, like that sort of thing, right? I know she's dead. Yeah. It'd be weird to introduce her, but and here she is in the ground. So it's the same trumpet guy that did last. Anyway, so he introduces the Pope, and then the Pope does give like a 3 to 5 minute exhortation, which is normal. Like if the Pope is going to do something digitally, that's pretty normal. It's like 3 to 5 minutes of typically pre-recorded. And it's like, here's what I would like to share. Young people, do not fear, have courage, stand firm in your faith. Like we've all heard something like that from a Pope in the past. He did that. And then this was the wild part. Like a friend of mine, Katie Praise McGrady, who like I edit our podcast every week. Like I hear Katie's voice a lot. So to be sitting in my parish watching Katie essentially interview the Pope on behalf of teens was wild. I'm like, it's the most connected I think I've ever been to a Pope. Like I have had friends meet the Pope. So like they shook Pope's hand, I shook their hand. Like I've had that 1 degree of separation before.
Yeah.
But like on a ministry level, I haven't. Because it's like, it was weird and surreal to be like, that's my friend. And she's talking to the Pope for 45 minutes on this national live stream. And like, it was the little things. It was 2 things. There was a big thing that was coming. Like the initial exhortation was pretty cool. I started crying when he started being a person.
Yeah.
Like, so Katie starts talking to him. And she says, she makes a little joke. She's a radio host. She's a podcast. She's been in youth ministry for so long. She's an MC. Like, so a lot of the off the cuff kind of stuff. Like, she's like, look, I'm not going to ask you about your starting Wordle. I'm not going to ask you about the sacrilegious socks that I gave you. So we're going to jump right in. And the whole setup was like, he gives his talk. Katie introduces these teens. And then 5 American teens from across America went up and asked him 5 questions. Like the questions were prepared, but like they got to ask questions that, as a viewer, you don't know. Maybe the Pope knew these questions were coming. Maybe he didn't. But they also asked follow-up questions that I know were not prepared.
Not scripted. Yeah.
And he still answered them and was like showing pastoral care in some pretty difficult questions about AI and being a young person in America and how do I connect with God when my phone's in the way? Like great questions that youth are always asking. They usually ask me and you at confirmation retreats. They got to ask the Pope. It's so crazy. But like he's answering the questions. But like, so Katie does her whole preamble and then he answers all the things. And then he says, my word for Wordle is different every single day. And I don't wear the socks that you gave, not because I don't appreciate them, but the Pope always wears white socks. I lost it. Because he's just an American guy who's super holy and became the Pope. But like, he's not answering, oh yes, Catechism 242 and canon law says about socks. No, he just chuckles and says, I play Wordle every day. And that's a thing that people ask. What's your starting Wordle, Chris? What's your starting Wordle? That's just a thing that people do. And the Pope's doing it on a live stream. It was crazy. So like that he's answering the questions, and I have some quotes that he said that were like super impactful. But like the waterworks were just going, and I'm sitting in the back. So I'm hosting an event at the parish and weeping for 15 minutes. But like everyone was set up. We had tables. There's like 90 people in one room, 150 people in another room. We're, projecting the live stream. Everybody's watching it and having a great time, right? I'm sitting in the back at a table by myself, sobbing and like trying not to make a scene.
Because you gotta go MC this thing out at the end of it.
No, I didn't even do it. Somebody else did it because I'm a wreck. Yeah, I look like I got in a fight because I wept for 15 minutes straight. And I was like glad that I was by myself and not at a table with other people because like I got to do that. And it was like I've been on this healing journey for 5 years. And I think it was just it's not the end, I don't think, but it was a big chunk of that last little percentage that got healed.
Healing came all the way from the top.
Yeah. Like I've never looked at a pope and been like, I could be friends with that guy.
We could hang out.
They've always been like so holy and so other and so different, like so different than my life.
Yeah.
But I'm like, I can hang out with a Bears and Cubs and White Sox fans from Chicago that talks about Wordle in his socks. Like I can do that. Like it felt like I was welcome at the table and not like you're welcome at the, like, I'll put it this way. Whenever the Pope goes out and washes the feet of criminals, that's when I feel like, oh, he cares about me too. Not when he's doing everything else. So I don't know. It's just different.
There was something relatable because I did see a number of the different clips that were created, and it was like, that's exactly what I would want to say to teens on that question. Authentic friendship, some of those different things. And largely, Taylor, I think you would say things largely similar to what the Pope said in regards to answering those questions.
But nobody's listening.
But you're not the Pope.
Right.
So the fact that it comes from his mouthpiece instead of yours is so meaningful, but at the same time so affirming to where it's like, oh, yeah, me and the Pope are totally aligned on that answer and different things like that. It was just, it was outstanding. And there was a buzz in the church because the Pope came and basically anointed Catholic youth gatherings. Because it wasn't just yay NCYC. Every time youth get together, they know that the Holy Father supports and supports that and cheers that on because he showed up to the largest gathering. And I think that's something profound for the field that we've been laboring in, the vineyard that we've been laboring in for so many years. It was meaningful. Absolutely. Yeah. I'm glad. I'm so happy.
It was so like, I don't know, just like one thing that's always bothered me that I think I was proven right through this experience with Pope Leo is that like one thing that I do, I've done this when you've been in the room, but like whenever we're about to start adoration, like a lot of times people would be like, when I'm in a large group of people, a youth event, adult ministry, whatever it is, like I ask the question pretty often, if Jesus walked through that door, how would you respond? And the answers vary. We like a lot of different answers are biblical. Like a lot of people would fall down and on their face and say, I'm not worthy, like Peter did. A lot of people would cry. A lot of people would be giggling and happy and overjoyed. A lot of people would run up and hug him. A lot of people would run away from him. A lot of people would be like, who's that? What? A lot of people would be like, wait, what? What's he doing here? I was just looking at my phone. And then Jesus walked in. Like there's so many different reactions. And like, that's, I use it as a lead into adoration. It's like, we don't have to pretend like Jesus is walking into the room and any and all of those reactions are positive. But like the thing that always pops into my head about who I am and my relationship with Jesus is that like the story that always comes to mind is that I'm Peter after Jesus rises and I'm running out. I have screwed up like Peter did in denying him, but yes. I'm pulling up my pants and I'm running out into the water and going to embrace him. And then we're going to go eat fish for breakfast on the coast. Like that's me. Like whenever I picture that moment, what would you do when Jesus walked in? I would eat and hang out with him, right? Like when I think of the apostles, I think about all those stories, the stories we don't know about. in between the sermons and the miracles and all that. It's just him hanging out with them. And like, they weren't just hanging out. Like, he's still forming them to be the early leaders of the church, right? But like, this was the most Christ-like in that way that I connect with Christ.
Yeah.
That I've ever seen.
Pope Leo hung out with the youth. Yeah.
He did. Like, we were sitting outside just chilling with him. And like, and he was available for us to ask questions, but he's also making jokes about Wordle and socks. Like, that's the Jesus that I've always imagined. And I've always felt weird about it. I've always felt weird that I'm not the person that falls down on my knees when Jesus walked in. I'd be like, what? Hey, look who it is. Like, that's my dude. That's my dude.
Yeah.
I'm like, I'll cook. Let's have lunch. Like, that's my reaction. And I've always felt less holy than the person who falls on their knees and is like either crying or saying I'm not worthy or weeping happy tears. Like, I'm the person that's like, my guy's here. And like, that's how it felt at NCYC. My guy's here.
That's amazing.
It was very sweet. So he got into the content piece, and I have a few quotes. And what's really funny about these quotes is that most of the quotes that stuck out to me are, one, either extensions of quotes that you and I have used from previous popes. Pope Francis, Pope Benedict, Pope John Paul II. He's like adding his own spin onto those.
Okay.
Or the second half of his, either one of two things. He's been reading Augustine recently, or Augustine was a huge part of his formation. Because in the second half of the answering question section, he's like, and then Augustine said this, and then Augustine said this. Like, so I'm quoting Pope Leo speaking to the kids at NCYC, but most of this is St. Augustine because he kept saying Augustine said this. So I don't know who I'm quoting, but here are some of the things that stuck out to me. And my notes started about 15 minutes in because, as I mentioned earlier, I was busy for the first 15.
Yeah. Your screen would have been dripping. Yep.
We cannot give our problems to someone we barely know. It helps click something for me because he's talking about my yoke is easy, my burden is light. And the kid was asking about like, how do I do the whole Jesus thing when I'm stressed about school and life and family and everything else? And he quotes first saying that my yoke is easy, my burden is light. But we've all heard that and wondered how it works practically. It's like, you keep telling me that your yoke is easy and burden is light, but my life is hard. Like, this 6-month span, this 12-year span, this 1 week span is very difficult. And he's like, you can't give your problems to somebody you barely know. So it's like, there is some impetus on us to build a relationship with Jesus before we just give him all of our crap. Will he take it anyway? Yes. But it's like, I don't know. There's just some balance there that I found refreshing.
Okay.
He talked about AI, which, he's been pretty against the same crap that I've been against. So that's been nice. But like, just joking, like, he gave a whole spiel about AI and like went into like, hey, it can be a tool, but it's a lot of it's bad and blah, blah, blah. Like, essentially a whole conversation you and I had on this show. But then he stopped and he finished his answer. And then right before Katie was about to start to move on, he goes, also don't let AI do your homework. He's like, here's the theological answer. And then here's the last little dad answer that I need you to know.
Super practical. Yeah. Hey kids, study. Yeah.
So he also talked about, so this is where he starts quoting a quote that you and I, one of us has said at every youth confirmation retreat you and I have ever done together. The Pope Benedict XVI quote about greatness. Do you know it by heart? Have you said it enough?
Let me see. You were not made for comfort. You were made for greatness.
Yeah. The world promises you comfort, but
you were made for greatness. You were not made for comfort.
Yeah, exactly. So he expanded upon that. He's like, look, the last big quote, like that's probably the most, Pope Francis said things to young people, but like the most famous quote that everybody in youth ministry has been quoting, the last one, a lot of them for like when we were kids was from Pope John Paul II. But like that's been, I think, the primary quote for young people in the last.
Yeah, the JP2 one is like, you are not the sum of your faults or your failings. You are the sum of the Father's love for you. That was kind of the big JP2
exactly,
one.
Exactly. Yeah. And like, so you still hear that one, but like, it's mostly been the better thing. So he kind of took it another step to like make it more his quote. He mentioned the quote from Benedict XVI, but he said, a desire for greatness, that desire for greatness is a desire for a relationship with Jesus Christ.
Wow.
And that combines my two favorite quotes of Pope Benedict. The one that you've already said It's about happiness, and it's like the controversial one because church people are like, or Catholic people are like, no, Catholicism is all about suffering. I'm like, what? No, it's not. It's about ultimate happiness because we all want to get into heaven. But he says, Pope Benedict says, the happiness that you are seeking, the happiness that you have a right to enjoy, has a face and a name. It's Jesus of Nazareth. Like those are my two Pope Benedict XVI quotes that I use literally all the time. And I like kind of built my life around, right? Yeah. And he says like the happiness and the greatness that he kind of combines those two. The happiness you're searching for, the greatness that you're seeking is in a person. Like if you want to live a life of greatness, you live a life with the great one. Like that's like that was awesome. And then here we get to the Augustine stuff. Making a difference usually happens through small daily practice. Like a lot of young people are like, I want to make a difference, so I need to do I need to start a movement and have my whole school and then the whole state and then the whole nation do this. It's like, no, like the way you seek greatness is by praying for 10 minutes a day.
Yeah, like, love your neighbor, kiddo. Yeah,
right, yeah. And then the two Augustine ones, if you want to change the world, let the Lord change you, which I thought was a cool play on the whole Gandhi thing. Like, if you want the world to change, be the change you want to be in the world. Instead of be the change, it's let the Lord change you. Like, so that's it's awesome. Like involving the Lord into it. And then the last one's straight from Augustine. Give me the grace to do what you ask and then ask. Like, so I've heard some funnier Augustine quotes, like, Lord, make me chase, but not yet, let me have some fun first. But it's like, no, it's like, not only like, give me the grace to do what you ask. And then actually ask me. Like, I want to be on mission and I want to be prepared for mission. But at the same time, we also want to be like, little sinners too. So I just liked the invitation there. Those are my thoughts on Pope Leo making me cry.
Well, praise God for Pope Leo and his boldness to step in. It landed in the church, not just in, and I've never seen so much publicity and noise surrounding NCYC. And yeah, it was definitely surrounding the Pope's visit to NCYC, his digital encounter. But it says something about the church prioritizing young people. And really, this goes back to, they're not the future of the church, they're the present of the church. We're not making space for them so that they can one day take over. We're partnering with them so that the church can be better now because of their perspectives and their views and their values. And Pope Leo just dove headfirst into that without reservation, I would argue as well. Like he was just, it's pretty bold not to have measured things, but none of those kids are going to be like, could you expand upon accessibility to the Latin Mass? No, they're like, hey, sometimes my phone distracts me from God. How can you help? You know what I mean? And it's just like, because that's the other thing is there was no political kind of hue to any of the questions, any of the setup or anything else that so much exists in church politics. It was just Pope Francis is like, let the children come to me and let's just share love together. It wasn't just him loving the young people. It was him being loved by the young people as well. And that type of exchange from a hierarchical standpoint is a rare display and warrants every tear you shed.
It was just like, it's just so much of Catholicism online is negative and so much of the lived experience is positive.
Yeah.
And so to see the online Catholic be that positive was also pretty moving.
That's it.
Just this reality that we all have in real life coming to the internet was pretty cool.
Yeah. It didn't just anoint youth gatherings. It also anointed digital encounters, or it set a bar for digital encounters that we should aspire to in the way that we Catholicism online. Absolutely. Right. Yeah.
Very good. All right. Those are my thoughts. I didn't cry during this. I thought I would, but I have finished the segment and I don't think that I have fully articulated how much it means to me and how much it meant to me.
Good.
We got to go. That's our show. I'm Taylor Schroll. He's Chris Bartlett. I'll be back in a month. He'll be back in a month. See ya.
Identifying deeper in our faith, thanks to the Seek 26 conference. Also, if you missed any of that or want to share it, find more in the midst of that, you can, of course, check the keynotes when you go to our YouTube channel. Just search Radio EWTN. And, of course, more with Forte Catholic at Podcast Central, EWTN.com/podcast. And then, of course, find your favorites and subscribe for future episodes. I'm Ace McKay, bugging out and going home. Remember to let God define who you are this week and enjoy the rest of your weekend. I'll see you next time with Catholics Coast to Coast.